What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show, and today we're going to do a video on some prison-related news. This is probably the biggest story in relation to prison-related news. I'm going to speak very indirectly in relation to this story. This was a story that I didn't want to talk about at all, and the reason I decided to do this video against my better judgment is because a lot of people have been reaching out to me, telling me, Joe, this is a million-viewed video. You need to address this story, or asking me, Joe, what are your thoughts on this situation? Or Joe, what is it like to be in that type of isolation where you ain't got no clothes on and they got the camera and they supposed to be watching you? I mean, they supposed to be watching you, ain't they? I'm hoping by this indirectness thus far, you guys get an idea of who we're getting ready to talk about. This is a billionaire. This is a guy that was, arrested for some very bad charges. He was a very bad type of a man. And now he's no longer with us. And there's a lot of talk and speculation. I'm really trying to watch my words in the beginning. Trust me, we're going to get good. There's a lot of talk and speculation about could it have been this, or could it have been that, or could it have been this in particular? Well, I'm going to be completely frank and beans with you guys about this just from the jump. I honestly don't care. I don't care how. I don't care if it was this or if it was that. It's happened. I mean, he's not the first person to no longer be with us when, he gets locked up or when an individual gets locked up. This type of stuff does happen. And who knows what will ever come from all of this attention to this story. Will answers ultimately, come from this? Will concrete evidence come from why, how, who, what, where? But what I do want to speak to you guys about is, what happens and what it's like to be in that type of a situation when, the staff thinks or is made aware because either you've made them aware or your family or that girl who left you and said that she was going to be with you forever, but she broke your heart as soon as you got locked up. As soon as you got locked up, she was gone. And then she calls the jail and tells them that she's worried about you. Ain't so worried enough to stick around, is she? And then the guards end up coming to the cell block saying, Guerrero, it's not a visit. It's definitely not a visit, but you getting ready to get packed up and go butt ball naked somewhere else. I want to talk to you guys about what it's like to serve time in that type of a 24-hour watch security cell. And I also want to talk to you about the difference between, that type of a cell and also another type of isolation that is very similar to that. So in relation to addressing this hot topic, this clout chase to the max, if we could even really talk about it, but we can't. We can't. That's about as deep as I'm willing to go in relation to this story. Now, if you're completely oblivious to who I'm talking about, I'm going to try to do my best to make you well awares. And the individual in question, I don't even want to say his name. I don't even think saying his first name is okay. It's family friendly. So I'm going to say, how can I tell you? He's a billionaire. I mentioned a few other little tidbits at the beginning of this. His name is Nefri Pepstein. XB Depstein. It's not exactly that, but it's pretty close to that. That's the guy who's in question. Super big story in the news right now. And again, a lot of people have been reaching out to me, asking my opinion on the situation, asking me to address this situation. How does this happen? I'm going to go ahead and break it down for you and with what I know of being locked up. Look, when you get locked up and they feel like you're a threat to yourself, they're going to put you down there in the butt ball naked room. And in a lot of cases, they got a camera that's honed in on you, watching you 24/7. And if they don't have a camera, they've got a guard. They've got a guard that's stationed right outside that door. They got to keep you under complete surveillance, 24-hour surveillance. They cannot let you do anything to yourself if they fear that you possibly will. And I'm not exactly sure if this guy got out of that type of isolation and got put back into his single man protective custody cell that he was definitely in when he did this. I think that's how this happened. I know originally he was down there in the isolation cell, and then potentially maybe they let him out, and then that's when he did what he did. Or somebody else did it to him. That is pretty cringe right there. I've also read reports on this story, and I haven't really paid any attention to this, but I think I read something along the lines of one of the excuses, one of the justifications was that the facility was short-staffed. Folks, anytime you hear about anything crazy happening anywhere in relation to incarceration, that is the number one excuse for why it happened. How could we let this happen? We're short-staffed. Who actually wants to be a guard anymore? They're not even getting all that much money. And they most certainly, you get no clout for being a guard. I'm sorry, I'm just keeping it 1,000 with you. If you was out in the bar and you're single and you're meeting a girl for the very first time and you ask her what she does and she tells you she's a clerk at 7-Eleven and then she asks what you do and you tell her, I'm a correctional officer. No, it's not a cop. Definitely not a state trooper. I'm not an FBI. I'm a correctional officer. One step above them all security, but a correctional officer inside of a jail or a prison. A common rebuttal or response or question to learning that type of information about a person, at least this is what I would ask if somebody told me that they were a guard. I would say, oh, you're a correctional officer. You look at the little man parts, the baby arms, the manacondas, the meatzillas. You like doing that? But I have read somewhere something about potentially they were understaffed. I don't know. But folks, what I want to focus on more importantly in this is what it's like to be down there in isolation, in the butt-ball naked surveillance cell. And I know this from personal experience. I think I've shared this story with you guys in the past, but I'm just going to refresh you on it, and it's a great story nonetheless. You know, there was a time in my life at 18 years old, I got locked up, and I had a girlfriend, she broke up with me over the phone, and I was crying hysterically like a 6-year-old in Walmart at the checkout when you can't get no candy. I was going to incorporate a skit right there, but it's way too hot up here to be trying to do that right this second. I was crying hysterically. She hung up on me. There was no good, no farewell, no, okay, well, I guess this is goodbye. Yes, it's goodbye. I'm telling you it's goodbye. Just hang up the phone. I don't want to hang up the phone. I know this is the last time I'll ever hear from her. She hung up on me. She hung up on me, then blocked her number, and then, within a span of about 5 minutes, all of a sudden the guards were at the cell block talking about Guerrero, pack your things. Take off all of your clothes. You know where you're going. It's not a visit. She called the jail because she was concerned that I might do something to myself. Bless her heart. They put me down there in that very cold cell. There was a camera in the cell, and it's super cold. It's almost like going into a freezer. But you're down there, you're shriveled up, you've got no room to even try to act like you go hard because there's no hardness at all when you're down there. You are shriveled like an Eskimo. Shriveled up. That thing is tucked up so tight, I better stop. So anyways, it's embarrassing for one. There would be 2 key moments that would happen to me while I was down in this type of isolation that would change my life forever, that would probably traumatize me for the rest of my life, and I'll share those really quick with you. When you go down there, the only way that you can get released from there, I think there's a minimum amount of time that you have to stay down there, and I'm pretty sure that it's 72 hours. They want to keep you down there for 3 days to ensure that you really are okay, and you're not just telling them that you're okay, and then you get out and you do what Pepstein did. So you're down there for 72 hours, freezing, and you're naked. And after the 72 hours that I was down there, the psychiatrist, she would come up to the window to speak with me, to do some sort of an examination. I hope it wasn't too thorough of an examination, but there's no doubt in my mind that she's seen how cold I was. But they come up to the door and they're banging on it. Guerrero, can I speak to you at the door, please? You walk up to the door, and as I'm walking up to the door, I was 18 years old. I was freshly single because my girlfriend had just left me at the time. I'm happily married now, no disrespect to my wife, but this was a really attractive young chick who was a psychiatrist. So when I see her, there's no way for me to put a little pep in my step, as a little swagger as I'm trying to walk up there. I'm trying to cover myself up, and I'm creeping up there like, yes, that's me. I'm Guerrero. The first question she asked me was, do I speak English? I do, and I do very well, as a matter of fact. And then she would begin to, do her examination, do her, her mental health check on me. And I told her, hey, look, girl, if we would meet under different times, see, I don't belong in here. You gotta get me up out of here. I ain't gonna hurt myself, girl. I'm 18 years old. I got a whole lot of living left to do. I don't, for the life of me, and I can't even sit here and act like I do, remember at all how that conversation went. I just know it was super awkward. I'm sitting there talking to a pretty girl, trying to look somewhat thuggish, butt ball naked on the other side of a plexiglass window. Yeah, girl, I'm trying to tell you. Yeah, I normally don't look like it. Is cold in here. You got a blanket. You got a blanket out there. I know it's summertime out there in the real world. It's July, but it is 30 degrees in here. Can I get a blanket? She would clear me. But it wasn't as simple as that. And again, that was the first traumatic thing that happened to me. You know, sometimes they tell you like how to overcome stage fright is like, you know, imagining the entire crowd is naked out before you. Sometimes as I'm doing these videos, to overcome the stage fright, I imagine all of you out there naked. She would clear me, but it would still take, and this is procedure, this is protocol, it still takes an additional 24 hours for you to get, you know, reclassified, or at least at this time where I was at, that's how it worked. It takes another 24 hours for you to get reclassified back to Gen Pop. Boy, I couldn't wait to get back to Gen Pop. Drink me a cup of that lukewarm coffee, that keefy mud. Hey, you got a cup of coffee? I'm just coming out of isolation. Nah, I ain't fighting nobody. They had me butt ball naked. You already know where I was. And before I would get out during those 24 hours, those final 24 hours, the second traumatic experience would happen to me. And, you know, I was sitting down there, I was minding my own business. I had nothing to do. The only person I could talk to was whoever was watching me through the camera. I know you're watching me. Say something at least. No response ever. But as I was sitting down there minding my own business, I started to hear a lot of commotion. And it sounded like children. Now, I've only been in isolation for a little more than 72 hours. I know I'm not losing my mind, or maybe I am. There's not children. We're in prison. What would children be doing here? I get my butt-ball naked self up to the window, and as I look out, I realize I'm not crazy. I see like probably at least 10-year-olds sitting outside the window. And I immediately realized, now mind you, this is back in like 2001. This is before the TV show ever came out on A&E. This was before Scared Straight was ever, you know, something that you watch on TV. They were doing this program, and they've been doing it for a long time, too. I am actually looking out the window at all of these kids, bad as hell. All these kids was bad. All of these kids are probably either no longer with us or serving at least a life sentence. They was bad. This Scared Straight program probably didn't help them at all. But as I'm looking out the window, I now realize what my purpose at this exact moment is. But I realize that my mission, my objective, what I am supposed to do is I am supposed to scare these children straight. So, you know, shriveled up, freezing, covering up my little itty bitty self. I turn on the thug. It's like a switch. You just turn it on. Put the battery in my back and turn on the switch. And Joe's gonna start talking like a prisoner. All sorts of, yo, hey, for real though. For real though. Y'all wanna act bad. Y'all wanna act bad. The louder I get, the tougher I sound. Y'all wanna act bad. God, open up this door. Hey, God, open up this door. As I'm putting on this absolute fraudulent Emmy Award worthy performance for these children, they are not at all fazed. Not at all. In fact, as I'm yelling at these children through this plexiglass, open up the door, God! I gotta be honest with you, I was a tad bit frightened looking into these soulless children. These children were the devil standing there staring right back at me. They were fazed none by that thuggish performance that I was putting on right then and there. And in fact, their response after snickering and laughing and pointing at me some more was to put the battery in their own backs, turn the switch on, and they took the thuggishness to a level 10. Hey, yo, look at this dude right here. Who do you think he talking to? There's 10 of us and one of him. And he ain't got no clothes on. You know who you talking to? You know who my daddy is and my brother is who's right upstairs when you getting ready to go right back to? Hey, God, open up that door. Open up that door and let us up in there. We're going to jump him. I don't know how much I've really talked about this in the past, but the only time that I was ever a part of the Scared Straight program, I was scared my damn self. These kids were terrifying. And they're yelling at the guard, asking the guard to open up the door, and I'm yelling back at the guard. I was just telling the guard, open up that door and let me out there. I'm yelling right back at the guard, God, you better not open that door. Don't you open that door, God. I see you with them keys. You know, that type of isolation where that individual who we won't speak his name was just at before he did what he did, it's not a good place to be. Not a good place to be, especially if you go through it any type of way like I did. I wanted to share that with you guys. A lot of people ask what it's like to serve time in that type of situation, and that's what it's like. It's cold, being watched, or you're supposed to be, unless they say they're short-staffed. And, you know, you're naked. Unless they give you the turtle suit, which looks like a little bulletproof vest. It's like all rubber. You might try to use that as a blanket. You cannot do anything else with it. You can't tear it. You can't do anything else with it. You may not have a mattress. You might have to sleep straight on either a steel bunk or a concrete pad. You might not even have a toilet in there. You know, different facilities take that type of a situation all sorts of different ways. They don't want to give you anything where you can get any type of height or leverage from. And they definitely ain't going to give you any type of a way to be able to try to do anything to yourself. Unless you want to just go head first straight into the door. There's always that possibility as well. I haven't seen it. I've heard guys do it. While I'm in isolation, you hear them, you hear the footsteps. Boom! Now, ironically, there's also another type of isolation that's very similar to the one that we just talked about. I have never been in this type of isolation. However, I know plenty of people who have. People who have been on the show, I can tell you they've been in there. And what this is actually referred to is the dry cell. The dry cell is a place where they put you at when they think that you have swallowed something in terms of contraband. Dry cell is just what that means. I mean, there's no water, no running water. Just like in the other type of isolation when you're under that 24-hour watch. In the dry cell, you're under the same thing, kind of. They're not watching you to see if you're going to do anything to yourself. They're watching to see when you dookie. And they actually have to note it. They have to note every time that you use the restroom. Can you imagine that guard's life? How do you tell people that's what you do for a living? Oh, me? I'm SEAL Team 6. I know, I'm a hero. I am an American hero. Yeah, you probably do a lot of lying if that's what you do for a living. And you know, that's a similar type of a cell because of the surveillance. It's just done for a different reason. But there are a lot of similarities. You're being watched. You may or may not be naked. I can't remember if they put you back there naked. Sometimes they may. As a form of punishment. They monitor everything that you do in the dry cell, not only when you use the restroom, but also when you drink water. And what they really want to do is convince you to be drinking water. They might even give you some Metamucil. The point of you going back there is for you to doo-doo and for that contraband to come out so that them guards can go in there and play with your dookie and then find what they think that you got. Now, the craziest thing is if you go back there under the assumption that you swallowed something, but you didn't. You're sitting back there, and they playing all up in your fecal matter, and they don't find nothing. They might beat you up back there, because they was wrong, and they feel silly. And now they got a tapeworm for messing around in that waste. As I get close to wrapping this up, I've got some notes on the story, one of many of the stories involving this high-profile guy, this billionaire, who did what he did, and there's all this speculation about how did this happen, was it something else entirely? But the only thing that I want to share with you from this is they say on the morning that this happened, shouting and shrieking could be heard from his cell. I don't know what was going on with that, but that's pretty crazy. I've definitely heard some shouting and shrieking coming from cells a time or two. And, you know, that's never nothing that you want to hear. As I wrap this up, though, I do want to give you guys my final thoughts, like Jerry Springer, on this topic. The only time that I had heard anything about this is when I watched the nightly news. And I'm older now. Look at my hair. You can tell. I watch the nightly news. I like to keep up with what's going on in the world. You know, I can remember when they first got this guy. They first arrested him. And, you know, they paint him out to be this monster that he is. I can never condone what he was doing. You know, he was a deplorable type of a person. But it's just crazy how, you know, when they were portraying this dude in the media, you know, everybody, including me, you know, you're hoping for the worst for a guy like this. But then the worst does happen. And now everybody's like, well, how did that happen? Why did they let this happen? How could they let this happen? And I don't understand, like, what happened in between there. You know what I mean? I just wanted to share that with you guys. I really want to hear what you guys think about the whole story. Share whatever theories you may believe happened in this situation. I'd like to hear that. And to be honest with you, this was a story like I had mentioned at the beginning of the video. I didn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. This is not the kind of story that, you know, this platform really favors. You got to try to read between the lines, add family-friendly type of content. I'm quite sure we're going to have some difficulties with this video, but I did this nonetheless because I know a lot of people had been asking me to address this story in particular. And I wanted to do that for you guys. I hope I did it in a well enough way, at least addressing what it's like to be in that type of an isolation. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you thought about this. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted and make the most of every day.